Today's edition of the Art Business Mornings, we're talking about our top 6 takeaways from the just released Art Market 2021 report. And specifically, we're going to talk about some background on the report, some top stats, 6 stats that we picked away from it, what it portends for artists and photographers in 2021, and lastly, what you won't read in this report. Welcome to another edition of the Art Business Mornings, the show that will put you on the path to a 6-figure a year plus art business. And I'm happy to be joined by Nick again today, the Art Storefronts President CEO. Nick, how are you doing?
Awesome. How are you?
Another day in paradise. You notice your shirt actually matches my background.
I know. It's like almost perfect.
What are the odds on that? Did not plan that. I just want to let you know, did not plan that. So I want to talk about this report. You're like, oh yeah, great. You guys put out a report. No, it was not by us. Okay. This thing was paid for. It looks like, I don't know specifically, but it looks like, the sponsors are Art Basel and UBS reporting specifically. So, what's awesome about this is normally the one that we've been looking at for like sort of the last umpteen years is this one from the Hiscox company, right? Which is like an insurer out of London. They do a report that's very similar. This is actually the first time I've seen this one. Maybe Nick, you've seen it before, but they've actually been putting this one out every year. I noticed. Yeah, I had no idea. And so I want to start sort of at the top with the disclaimer on this, because I think our natural tendency, certainly what I've already noticed about some of our customers, is to think this report applies 100% to you. And sort of the error in the thinking on that is who they survey for this report. Easiest way to think about it is like a sports analogy. Who they are surveying are NBA players, NFL players, Major League Baseball players, the top tennis players, golfers, right? Who they're not surveying is everyone else, right? So if you're a casual golfer or you're playing weekend softball and that's who you are as an artist or a photographer, not 100% applicable to you. Okay, not 100% applicable to you. So don't let it freak you out whether you like this report or not. It's not gospel. What's awesome about it though is, we've been in this industry a while, Nick. How many awesome reports do we get put out? One a month? One a week? No. There's like 2, right? Yep. This is the newest one. And there's only one a year, right? Yeah. So, you're doggone right. We got to talk about them, right? We got to talk about it. It's awesome.
Yeah. And I think the biggest thing about it, as we will see here when you start getting into some of the points that we've identified, is that, it's directional, right? That's the way you want to be looking at it, is like you're able to see from a high level some really good data that gives you an idea of the direction that the market is headed in, right? Online, off, where things are happening, where the trends are, which areas are growing and expanding, which areas are not, and so forth.
Let me tee you up on that. I figured I would read the table of contents because I think, that'll give it to you at a high level, which is good. So this thing's broken up into 7 sections, and it's, key findings, the global art market in 2020. Then number 2 is dealer sales. Number 3, auction sales. Number 4, art fairs. Number 5, online sales. Number 6, global wealth and collector perspectives. Number 7, economic impact and conclusion. So totally an awesome read. Really recommend everyone read it. The link to it will be in the show notes, or you can just Google it. It's on Art Basel's website. It's on UBS's website too. By the way, one of my favorite takeaways on this thing, they have got some new terminology that I've never heard. Nick, what does OVR stand for?
You tell me.
Online viewing room.
Stated
another way, we can't just be calling these things Zoom sessions when we're selling high-end art. So OVR, nice snooty way to get that thing under the radar, huh? Instead of Zoom session, which I'm sure they're all just on, right? Like,
in other words, video conference, a video call.
Yes.
That's all it is.
Which, we haven't been talking about for the last year and a half. So I'm not going to go down that thing. But if you want an OVR, Nick, we're not running a normal session right now. We are in an OVR. Okay. Welcome to the Art Business OVR. We're running one right now. So what I've done, my takeaway from this episode, 1, we love talking about this stuff. We love reading this report. So we're just going to rant and rave on it. We cherry picked some stats that I like, some of which were aha, some of which are just going to be fun to discuss about. Like I said, at the end, I kind of want to give you some takeaways that I read from it, which, you know, I enjoyed this thing. It was profound for me that you know, you're not going to read from the report. Okay. And then we'll just see where it goes from there. But again, highly encourage you guys to check it out. So number one stat. Okay. And I might have a different read on this one than you do are. So I want to read it. You go, and then I go. Okay. Despite the contraction of sales overall, okay, aggregate online sales reached a record high of 12.4 billion, doubling in value from the year previous. Okay. Doubling in value. So you go on that and then I'll go.
Okay. Well, there's a lot that I could talk about with this. There's a lot, but I'm going to make a very big point here. Okay.
Mhm.
Because what you said there is, despite the fact that, like, okay, so 2020, this is about what happened in 2020, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Like, you know, markets got affected, people's finances got affected, but the online market exploded, right? And I've made this point before, but what happened is all of the offline sources, right, which are, let's just, you know, the short list is mainly galleries and art shows, right? Like local art fairs, things like that.
Yep.
All of that was gone and had to go somewhere, and it went online, right? And what I mean by that is the demand for art, the walls that had to get filled in people's homes or businesses or whatever it was, right?
Mhm.
Or the things that people wanted to collect like,
Yeah.
had to get fulfilled. And it went online, okay? Now, why is that so profound and important? Well, if you're somebody who depended on that world, it was not good for you. You got crushed, right? But for the individual artist and photographer who's working their business from home and is selling in the online market, direct to their customers, doing their marketing, right? Doing their own marketing and doing all of that, and had been doing that for a little while, right? And had learned how to do that, they exploded. They killed it, okay? And we know that. We've talked about that. We sent an email about it with a different person probably every 3 or 4 days if you're on our email list.
Yep.
Like highlighting these people, right? Like literally record-breaking sales all time, every year. People that have been doing it for 20 years had records last year, like out of the blue. And this is not like one isolated case. This is like all over the place. But it was only the people who were focused on selling on art online with e-commerce for a little while before the whole thing happened, right? Call it 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 4 years, 5 years, 7 years. The more the better. That's what we know, right? The more the better, because they got selling online takes time. You had to build an audience. You got to learn how to do email marketing and get good at it, right? You got to get good at social media marketing and all the digital marketing. There's all these different components to it, right? Yeah. But to go back to the point, okay, is that the online market expanded so much, okay, that despite the fact that if the overall art market went down a little bit, right, the amount that went online was so big that for everyone that was selling online and focused on that, their market just exploded. It doubled, right? It doubled in size in 1 year. It literally went up by 100%. So like, let's just think about that, right? So the market contracted by, what was it? 15% or 20%? What did they say?
They just said despite the contraction of sales.
Despite the contraction. So there's a small contraction, right? Mm-hmm. But the online went up by 100%. So that explains why everyone who was robust at selling art online killed it, And so that was the biggest point to me in that quote.
Yeah, I mean, there's so many different ways you could read this. Like we could take this quote and divide it by 6 and give each one a portion of the quote to argue, and you could make a robust argument, and no one would be right or wrong because it's so loaded and everything else. Sort of my takeaway is like, you could make an argument that matter is neither created or destroyed, right? So we could say the demand for art didn't change, right? You could even make an argument that the demand for art increased, which is the argument that I make, because we're all stuck at home for all the aforementioned reasons. We're all stuck at home. No one's going into work. All of a sudden you're in a space, you're sick of your white walls. So my argument is that it increased, right? The deeper layer down, when Forrest Gump's boat's out at sea and all the rest of the shrimp fishing fleet is in the harbor and the typhoon comes through and wrecks all of those boats and he's the only one that can go fishing, right? And you got the Bubba Gump Shrimp Company. That's what happened. here, right? Like the ones that had the ability to have a sales channel open were no different than Forrest Gump in that boat. They were still fishing. And not only were the conditions better than they've ever been, there was zero competition, right? Like my biggest takeaway from this entire thing was, it's sort of the same point you just made, but if you were one of the lucky few to be in the position to not have your sales channels eliminated overnight and you could still sell, my word, how well did you do, right? And we saw quite a bit of this. I saw quite a bit of this. I continue to see quite a bit of this. And on both sides of the coin, the ones that are thriving, and then the sheer panic in so many people's eyes for the ones that it's like, they're not coming back. It's not coming back. It's not coming back. Right. My traditional revenue sources, I've been patient and waiting this thing out. So, no matter what, the one takeaway is whatever you have going on, okay, whatever your sales channel is, make sure you are cultivating one where you own everything, right? Make sure you are cultivating one where if the typhoon comes in, you can drive your boat out to sea and not get destroyed along with everyone else, right? Like, my goodness.
And this rolls right into like the fragility of a business, right? Fragile, yep. Right? So the people who had fragile businesses.
Yeah, explain that a bit.
Well, it's a phrase that was coined by Nassim Taleb. Very successful guy, has written quite a few books. They're very intellectual, and he's got a book called Anti-Fragile, right? And it's about this concept. But when it comes to building an anti-fragile business, right? The people who were fragile were relying on galleries and art shows, and more often than not, because we speak to thousands and thousands of artists and photographers, and we know this, they were reluctant, Pat, for the last 10 years to go online. Either, you remember like 7 years ago, like when art storefronts began, and what was the most common thing? Oh, art doesn't sell online. Meanwhile, you literally show them, and people selling tons of art online, get them on the phone with these people, and they'd still be like, I don't know, I don't think it sells online. Okay, all right. And so they would sit back there, they would never launch a website. And then those people would launch a website, but they would just view it mentally as their glorified business card, right? They never took it seriously as like, wait a minute, this is actually my art gallery that happens to be online on Main Street of the internet, and I can market and build an audience and get people to come to this from everywhere in the world. They were just like, no, this is my online business card, back to my narrow lane of galleries and art shows, or one or the other, right? Yeah. And so they ended up with a really fragile business. And so I think that's one of the other takeaways here, right? Is I said directional at the beginning of the conversation. These things are directional, okay? And you have to know as an entrepreneur that you cannot be behind on these things, guys. The warning signs were out there every year for the last 15 years that the online art market was just expanding and exploding, right? Growth, constantly, every single year. You literally had to be hiding under rocks. The data was there. You're in denial. It was there. You could simply Google search in 1 second and literally see that happened. But so many people just didn't do that, and they got caught with fragile businesses and they got hurt. So the lesson going forward is, you want to stay ahead of the market, and you want to own. Yes, like you said, you want to make sure you own your distribution channel, right? Which is going direct to consumer, where you control everything and you're not dependent on third parties, okay? Yeah. You can sell direct. You've got your own email list, your own audience. And when I say that, I don't mean Facebook fans or Instagram fans. How many of you are out there that have plenty of Facebook fans and Instagram followers, and you can't figure out how to get sales out of it, right? You need to get those people off of that, and onto your email list, which is something that you can own and that you can take to other platforms, because you can upload them up there, and show ads to them and different things like that.
Okay, so I'm on to point number 2. And I quote, despite the high number of events being canceled, 41% of the high net worth collectors, or high net worth collectors, and they call these HNWs, high net worth collectors surveyed reported that they made a purchase at an art fair in 2020, while 45% reported making one through an art fair's online viewing room. 45% reported making one through a Zoom session. Staggering.
Amazing. Yeah.
Staggering.
Yeah.
So, this one's pretty easy to interpret on its face, and we've been talking about the future of selling art online, really, and offline too, or it's sort of the mix mash of mealy mouth way of saying it, but this is a new front that has been opened up in art sales. Okay, leveraging live video, whether one-to-one or one-to-many. And my biggest takeaway from this particular one, because I run these art business workshops 3 times weekly, Zoom sessions with me, you can jump on, or members of my marketing team, link in the bio, all that. 80-year-old people once a month, sometimes 2 a month, sometimes 3 a month, will get on the Zoom session. 80-year-olds unmute themselves and ask questions. If they're doing it, the whole entire world knows how to do it, right? It is our new reality. Ignore that at your peril. Ignore that at your peril. And this data is completely backing it up.
Yeah.
Okay.
I think do you know what else I think from that? I think is a very important point, and I'll just kind of leave it like a little bit of a cliffhanger. Is what nobody realized prior to the last year is how important and effective video calls are in the art selling process.
Yep.
Right?
Yep.
Was anyone doing it in 2017?
No.
Nobody, right? And that was part of the problem. That was part of the problem, right? But it is a very effective way of selling art, okay? There's a way of doing the whole thing, right? And leading people into it and all that stuff. But it's very effective at being an alternative to the in-person, gallery experience. It's the next best thing. And it works like a dream. It works, okay? And when I say that, I say it as people who have sold, tens of thousands of dollars personally, working with artists, right? Like artists on the Art Storefronts platform. So we will do these things with them in the beginning to test. Our marketing team will. I was even helping with these things as well when we were figuring this stuff out. And in the ones that we actually ran, we're talking. I mean, how much art was sold, Pat? 50, 60, 100,000?
I'm running one this week.
Yeah, and you're running another one this week to freshen it all up, right? But I think that's a major point there. A major point is that online video was missed, and it will not be going forward.
Yep. Number 3, from 365 global art fairs planned for 2020, 61% were canceled. Okay. 37% held live events, and the remaining 2% of fairs, the number looks low, but I copied and pasted. The remaining 2% of fairs held a hybrid alternative event. Okay. Which is just sort of fascinating in of itself, right? Like, 1, yes, we know the stats about how many were canceled. 2, they all scrambled and tried to pull something off, none of which I heard were successful. I'm sure there was a couple that were successful, but everyone tried to figure out how to make it a live event. Everyone tried to figure out how to make it a hybrid of live and in person if 50 people can attend, and Right?
Well, what really quick too, what did we actually really hear? We had quite a few Art Storefronts members who said that they participated in some of these, they paid the fee, and they got nothing out of it.
Yeah, got obliterated. And that'll be in my final points. I cover that one quite significantly, but my read on it is just our job, my job especially, is to prepare the customers to have that, to be ready as soon as these things are back open, right? And you talk to enough artists and photographers that have been doing the show or fair circuit for a long time, and I end up hearing all these metrics, all these like extractions for how they judge it, like, got to make your booth fees on day 1. If you don't make your booth fees on day 1, you're never going to make the show pay, right? And all these ways that people judge it and everything else. And a lot of people talking about how, like, how hit or miss it is, right? You don't get anyone conclusively saying 100% of the time, like, these shows and fairs are so, every single solitary one's a home run, I do so well at them, like, it's still a hit or miss business, the shows or fairs, right? So my takeaway, what I learned, what I see is, like, we are going to come out of this thing gun shy. Everyone's going to play it a little bit different. Some people are going to play it fast and loose. There was never anything. It was a hoax to begin with. Some people are going to be like, this still terrifies me. If you take even 10% of the attention, 10% of the attendance away from these fairs, that increases by orders of magnitude the difficulty to make it pay.
Yeah.
significantly,
Yep.
significantly. And that's also some of like the specific things, because in that 10%, it might be the one person that takes your entire fair show from boom to bust, right? Buys $10,000 worth of stuff, buys $15,000 worth of stuff, buys 6,000, whatever it is for you, right? So you have to plan for when these things do come back. Okay, they're not going to be at full strength. Now, we love shows and fairs. Okay, we think they are one of the most fantastic ways to validate art, validate new directions that you might be going in, get extremely aggressive with your lead capture. I mean, we are desperate to have them come back because we find them to be such an important part of overall building a successful art photography business. But we are also very, very bearish on them coming back in any strength anytime soon. My 2 cents. But the point,
Yeah. I think that's, go ahead.
Is you have to plan for these things, okay? And if they're not coming back, and you have resources, namely your time, for how long it took to load the car up, for how much the gas, for the hotel fees, the booth fees, how long you stayed, time away from your family, everything else, you need to intelligently redirect that, okay, into your own attention, marketing that you're going to own, that you're going to be able to sell to for years and years. And, you know, as you're looking at your year and planning out your calendar and knowing that things are not going to be back at full strength, you have to contemplate, where do I divert those funds to keep this business moving and growing? That's my 2 cents.
Yeah, and what I would add to that is, you know, when I think that's you have to take the prudent point of view, right? Yeah. And like when you look at the fair art shows, right, and you look at galleries, you know what I see there? I see a lot of unknown. It's unpredictable. It could be great, and we could be totally wrong, but it could be horrible, right? But it's going to be somewhere in between both of those, right? Yep. And you don't know what it is. Everything that all of us are saying is just speculation, because we won't know until we're actually in it. But you know what? What is not an unknown? What is not an unknown? The online market and selling direct. That is not unknown. That is controllable. That is going to be there no matter what happens with any of the situations that are affecting retail, right? Like whether art shows are good or bad, online is going to be there, right? Whether art galleries are good or bad, online is going to be there. And this is because it's the future, and it is far less fragile, you know, than any other method of selling. So yes, we are cheering these things to come back and to be there because it's better for everyone, right? At the end of the day. But you know, the right advice to provide to any individual artist or photographer, entrepreneur is, look, you got to look at this situation and you got to go, is my strategy for, you know, improving my business and growing my sales, like, is it consistent with where the market is headed and with the risk that is ahead of me, right? And if it's me, I'm going to continue to do every single thing I can to educate myself and become better and build the skill set and tool set to become better than every other artist or photographer that I can at running in my own art gallery business out of my home, online, you know, selling direct, that I possibly can. I think that is the smartest move that you can make. You know why too? What else are you going to do? Are you going to spend all this time like getting better at running an art fair, an art show? Like, what do? You go there, you set up your booth, you know, you have some tactics, and you either make sales or you don't, and you work it for the 3 days that you're there, or however long it is, right? What else are you going to do, right? Galleries, like you can't do anything there. Galleries is all about like, you're going to have to talk to the people and negotiate and have a contract and get into those. There's something you can do right now, and you should do it, right? And it is build the unfragile part of your business, the area that has done extremely well and where the market is headed and where you actually have control.
Yeah, and it tees up this next point. So this is number 4, and I quote, "The share accounted for by online sales expanded from 9% of total sales by value in 2019 to 25% in 2020. The first time the share of e-commerce in the art market has exceeded that of general retail."
It's amazing.
It's a big deal.
Yeah, so this goes right into, you know, the things that big companies have been talking about, like the trend, like the habits that have been formed, right?
Yep.
The habits that have been formed as a result of everything that's gone on the last year and a half, the last year. And
habits that are not likely to change.
Yeah, and how those habits are not likely to change. They never do, right? You never go back to the old world. That's such an important point for everyone that's hanging on, right? Like, this has been like studied and done so many times and looked at so many times. It never goes back to where things were, right? So the old world that it was like is now history. It's history. There's going to be a new world, when everything opens back up or whatever happens there. And it's going to be this new world that we don't know what it is yet, right? But a lot of habits changed, a lot of habits changed. And it's going back to video calls for making sales, right? On high dollar items. That's like a perfect point. So many things happened in the last year, live art shows, right? Like you and I could go down the list about all the marketing tactical that we invented and came up with, right? To help our artists and photographers. These are things that never existed, that were forced to exist because everyone had to get creative, but it turns out that these things were the missing things that could have been there before, that were preventing more art from selling online, right? But they're there now. And that's why the world has changed. That's why the whole game has changed, because your online abilities are way different than they were a couple of years ago, and that's going to have a big impact.
It's massive. Like, I mean, is this anything all that profound? This one, though, it's like,
not really.
We all know everything's been moving online, right? It's not just about art; it's about every single solitary thing. Period. It just increased it. It just increased it so significantly.
And everybody, like every big company, was, you can see it in their stock filings on
all of them.
They all predicted that by 2030, 80% of the market, or 70 to 80% of sales, would be e-commerce. It's just been on this chart that all of them have had for the last 20 years, right? Like this year we're expecting it to be this, and it's just going up. And however, what all that happened was 2030 just got brought sooner than expected.
Yeah, I mean,
it was happening anyway.
To take it out of the art for a second, like, dude, sort of terrifying. Retail. What's going to be the next couple of years? Retail, sort of terrifying to me. But anyway,
yeah, retail is going to completely change. Retail as we know it is going to completely change. There's going to be different types of shops and businesses that are in the locations taking over shopping malls, or things like that.
My hope is that all the shopping malls turn into one giant laser tag where you can run in and out of stores. You know what I mean? I love that, playing that laser tag.
Kids will love that for sure.
Yeah, I got kids. Number 5. Okay, the share of online sales in the dealer sector, okay, including art fair OVRs, the Zoom calls, expanded threefold in 2020. From 39% to 39% from 13% in 2019. That's massive. Dealers at all levels showed significant increases in the online components of their sales, with the largest advance by those in the 10 million plus turnover segment, okay, to 47%. So, the thing that infuriates me, okay, and I know people are all very well-meaning. Again, these stats are a little bit loaded, but if the rich people are doing it, everyone's doing it, right? Like, every single solitary person can leverage video, and all of the high net worth individuals are there. And what do I get a variation of? I'm not picking on anybody for this, mind you. It's just, after you have it happen 1,000 times, you're like, okay, I get it. Everyone tells me they want to market, they want to go after, that their work is perfect for the high net worth individuals. Here is a stat that's telling you that the high net worth individuals now are extremely comfortable buying art, including the $10 million plus via live video. Is there any other takeaway that is needed from that? I don't think so.
Nothing.
Yeah.
Full stop.
Yeah.
Next point.
Yeah. Thank you. And so that was number 5. This is number 6. Okay. 90% of high net worth collectors visited an art fair or gallery OVR in 2020, and 72%. Okay, this. I cannot wait to rant on this one. Felt it was important or essential to have a price posted when they were browsing works of art for sale online. That one's a sticker. Okay, so let me just say that again, because there was a lot going on there. 90% of high net worth collectors visited an art fair or gallery OVR, so a Zoom session in 2021 or 2020, 72% felt it was important or essential to have a price posted when they were browsing works of art for sale online. That's an interesting one to me. That's an interesting one. Go ahead. You have something on that? You want me to go?
Well, it's an obvious one to me because it's called the number one rule in retail. If you are selling to a consumer, to an end consumer, you have a price tag. Like, have you ever walked into a store and you're like browsing and like you're kind of flipping through the sweatshirts, right? You're looking for a sweatshirt and it doesn't have a price tag on it. You're looking for it. Do you go and go grab the guy, or do you just start flipping through to the next ones, right? Like, more often than not, people just start flipping through unless they're just adamantly in love with whatever it is that they just saw. Yeah. And you know, the big problem with that is when people are browsing and they're not even sure they're going to buy and they sort of impulse buy, you got to have things ready to go on the spot. So it's not surprising to me at all. If I buy something like high ticket, what are you doing? Just put the price.
Yeah. Don't make me work for it. A lot of people still make you work for it. My takeaway from that is like, don't waste my time and don't make me think.
Yeah, exactly.
Don't waste my time.
End consumer, impulse buy, have a price tag, done.
Yeah, because there's so many situations where I like walk in somewhere and it's like, you know, I'm obsessed with motorcycles and scooters and everything else, right? And like, I go into the dealership, right? And I'm on the floor and I'm looking at it. And when they don't have the prices on it, it just sort of infuriates me, right? Like, I'm not even going to waste my time then, right? I was mildly interested in this thing, but because there's no price on it, you can pound sand. I'm going to go to the next one. It's so true. Like
end single product, got to have it.
Yeah. Yeah. Anyway, so you can interpret that one however you want. But I looked at all of this and I kind of want to just wrap up with my theses on all of this, and you can poke holes in it as you see fit. But you know, two massive events recently. One was the whole NFT boom, okay, and the NFTs, non-fungible tokens. I think I talked about this a couple of weeks ago, but this guy Beatbull sold like $3.5 million, and then the next day there was a clubhouse with all of these whales, okay, like pro artists and photographers, the biggest and the biggest. Musicians were in there too. Beatbull was in there, you know, the director of Sotheby's were in there, and they were all talking back and forth. And what's interesting about Clubhouse, what was interesting about that experience, and I'm not going to make it any more about that, is just getting to be instantaneously inside of a conversation with all of these people that are at the top of their game. They're the biggest artists in the world for whatever they are, right? That's number one. Number two, this report. And, you know, whether this report, okay, which is aimed at the pro artist or you, the profound takeaway that I have, okay, and again, this Clubhouse thing underscored it, you all have the same problem. It is all just a war for attention. That's it. My takeaway from reading this report, okay, and being in this industry myself and being a marketer is everyone is struggling for attention. Okay, it doesn't matter the top artists, the top fairs, whether it's Art Basel, they were scrambling like crazy trying to figure out, this show's canceled. We have all these investments. How the heck are we going to get the eyeballs to this particular thing? Okay, the takeaway in all of this is thinking the attention problem is just yours. Let me tell you that it changes a little bit. It's a little bit easier when you get higher up, but we are talking two sides of the exact same coin. The currency in today's day and age is getting attention and getting more out of the attention that you have. And I mean, I just keep getting slapped in the face with it at every level. This report does it for me in like 6 or 7 different places if you read it.
As do I.
Yeah. Yeah. Massive. It is everyone's problem.
It's everything, because the people that are at the top, they had an attention problem. And it's easy to think like, oh, it's easy for him or her, right? Yeah. When they're at the top. But you don't, when you actually dig into their situation and you talk to them, they'll tell you, dude, I spent 10 years getting here, 15 years, some 20 years, right? Yeah. Like you look at Beeple, right? Like there's a whole story behind him, but he put out a piece of 5,000 pieces of art. He's on like, you know, I forget exactly the number that he's at, but 5,000 pieces of art. He committed to doing one a day, right? A new one every single day. So he put the work in, right? And built the attention. But yeah, it's all about attention at the end of the day. The reason why, and this is one of the, you know, I hate to say this because it's the truth and we see it all the time, but like people are like, artists and photographers are very critical of other artists and photographers, especially when they're selling more than they are, right? Mm-hmm. And they're the first people to say, hey, that person's art sucks. Why are they selling so much? Literally see this almost every day, Pat, in Facebook comments of people's work, right? And it's really sad and it bums you out. But you sit there and you just go, dude, this person has more attention than you do. That's what it is.
Yep.
You got great art, good, but you got no attention. You're terrible at marketing. You're going nowhere because you can't solve the marketing problem. This person outsmarted you with worse art. Maybe that's your opinion, but maybe it's worse art because they said, I gotta solve my marketing problem. If I can solve the marketing problem and have the attention, I'm gonna have a distribution channel. No problem. I'm gonna be making sales, right? Yep. So stop. So if that's your problem, you know, you got to stop sitting there and like just pointing fingers. Just understand that's all that's happened is that person just, you know, just got the attention and they worked for it and they earned it. And that's why they're selling more. That's it. It's that simple, right? If you do the same thing, you'll probably sell more if your art really is better, you know, and has a bigger market potential.
Yeah. So point number one that you want to read in the report, attention is a commodity. Nothing's changed there. Number two, which has like been so blatantly apparent. And, you know, again, this is just so redundant to anyone that's listened to this show for any time, but I've got to say it. A new front has been opened up in selling art, right? We've covered it many, many times. Gonna have to do my hand thing just for the sake of argument. What is the single solitary best way to sell art or photography? Hasn't changed. In person, face to face. Okay. Problem. We're all geographically fixed on the earth. We have to sleep. Can't have 15 conversations at once. You need a website. What is the new front that is the hybrid between the two? It's video, live video in all the capacities, right? Whether their little buzzword, what was the buzzword? I forgot it. OVR or Zoom sessions, whether it's one-to-one or one-to-many, it represents one of the most significant upheavals to how art and photography has been sold, certainly in our lifetimes, right? You know, certainly since a website was created. The artist, okay, the smart artist understands that a brand new front has been opened up. They understand that no one has this all figured out, okay? It's early days. The big houses, Art Basel, Sotheby's, on down to the lowliest artist that's never sold anything. We're all struggling to figure this out, right? They were all struggling to figure it out. The proverbial playing field has utterly, totally, and completely been leveled, okay? They've got nothing that you don't have. You can be just as effective, okay, with a webcam, okay, as you can to whatever lighting setup that Art Basel and Sotheby's has. It doesn't matter, right? It represents the obliteration of gatekeepers. It represents the utter, total, and complete leveling of the playing field. And there's no playbook out there. It's brand new. Everyone's trying to figure it out. And, you know, has it been a joy for me all year long to go and figure it out on my own? You're damn right it has. Has it been a joy for me to go and figure it out and stumble and fall flat on my face and have every stupid problem imaginable? You better believe it is. Is Schadenfreude real? Yes, it is. Because when I see all these other people hyping it up for weeks and realizing that you should have shipped 30 of them first and they fall over their face, I do enjoy it, okay? I get some enjoyment out of that. I'm a human being, right? Everyone's trying to figure it out. The biggest takeaway is it represents one of the most tremendous opportunities I've ever seen. And it's democratized. It's democratized. How many more times do you need to read it? And as much as myself, Nick, Art Storefronts has been a broken record on this, you know, one of the things that I've been saying recently is like, you are going to start hearing this in every single solitary industry imaginable that could possibly leverage it. It represents a tectonic shift in the way things are done, period, full stop. And those that get there first are going to get the best plots of land. Those that get there first are going to get the beachfront realty. What are you doing? Are you shipping? I hope you're shipping. I hope you're shipping. We're shipping another one this week. But, you know, rant and the rave on that. You have any color to add to that, or did I beat it to death?
No, you got it.
Yeah. So again, the smart artist, the smart photographer out there is going to see the writing on the wall. Okay. A well-balanced strategic approach to selling art. And this is really the massive thesis of everything that we do and we will be doing going forward. And this is critical, right? Because I hate that we get boxed into the one thing, right? Like, we are not the one thing, right? This is not what we advocate. We are not just a website solution. It's not what we do. The smart artist or photographer is going to look at my little hand thing and go, okay, so if I really want to build a good business, here it is. Here's the cheat sheet. Sell art in person, face to face as much as you can. have the website to back you up and assist those efforts all the time. Constantly be running the live video, the live art shows as a new front to open up art. You do that whilst building your own attention, you will succeed. Also, if you can get any of the other older, other revenue sources to pay, squeeze them as hard as you can, but never in lieu of the only ones where you set the rules. That's it. That's our thesis. That's why we exist. That's everything that we're going to do. That's everything that we're going to do for the next 10 years. I don't care if it's in person or on the website or if it's via the live art shows, or I don't care if you get external revenue sources working. This is how you build a business. Okay.
That's right.
That's it.
That's right. And that's because that structure has nothing to do with us. That's what actually works.
The reality. That's the reality.
That's the reality that goes for any industry as well, right? And we talked about this at length, like selling direct versus selling indirect. We talk about attention a lot. These are principles that apply to almost every business. The specifics of it are a little bit different for the art industry when you get into the weeds, right? But overall, that's the structure that you've got to have, right? So all we've done is we've built a business to help provide all of those things and make them simpler, cheaper, easier than trying to, do the whole thing and build a valuable, successful art business, Frankensteining all these different pieces together.
Yep. It becomes so clear too, like when you which is why this report was so profound. It's so fun to have these thoughts and articulate them yourself and constantly do them on these workshops and figure out the different ways that you're going to say it and explain it and make it palatable, like as a teacher. But then it's so nice to hear like other teachers that are really good at their own, vocational aspects and ways of doing it, then it sort of melds with your own. But it's like, okay, your art business, the giant umbrella on the top is like attention. Okay. Getting more out of it, getting more of it, getting more out of it. And then what's the best way to do that? There's the three. Okay. In person, live video whenever you can, website to back you up. And then below that are any additional revenue sources that you can get. That's it. What do we provide? The biggest umbrella, right? The biggest umbrella. I got to work on some of these analogies. Sometimes I go spur of the moment, but that's what I got.
All right.
I'll cover some other aspects of this report probably later because I really tend to enjoy it, but everyone's got an attention problem, Nick.
Yep. Well, the reports, as you said, they come out once a year, right? And so you should check them out. We will always send them out. If you're on our email list or whatever, we'll send them out by email, link you to them and all that. So, and it's good. They're good to just review and just understand where things are headed, right? If you were reading these things, every year honestly, if you really want to just skim through it and get some high level, you can do it in 5 or 10 minutes. If you were doing that for the last 10 years, you would have been in a great position these last couple of years. Great position, because you would have already known that the whole market was eventually going to be online by 2030, right? You would have already known that. And you would also know that nobody's focused on it. Nobody's really working that hard on it. And so it was a great opportunity to have a little bit of an arbitrage.
Yeah. Well, on that note, as always, thanks for listening and have a great day. Bye, guys.